co-creating a world filled with positive possibilities while leading by example, My Power of One takes a stand for kindness. In The Wizard of One, Sue Vicory is joined by new guests in each episode to share inspiring stories and challenge the listener to continue transforming humanity one word and one act of kindness at a time. Be sure to stop by mypowerofone.com and join the movement at mypowerofone on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
If I want to record. Okay. Hello, and welcome to The Wizard of One, a magical journey of kindness. We are brought to you by My Power of One, which can be found at www.mypowerofone.com, and Heartland Films, which can be found on SueVicory.com. My name is Sue Vicory, and today I am joined by Luke DePron. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Luke is an online weight loss and fitness coach for busy entrepreneurs and businessmen, as well as the host of a high performance podcast and the founder of Live Great Lifestyle. He helps high achieving entrepreneurs lose 20 to 40 pounds of body fat through the lean body method, so their physiques, energy, and confidence match the success they have in business and in life. He is also, how I know him, an actor. I should have led with that, actually. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And tell our audience how you and I first met, and let's see if it matches how I remember it.
So I believe it would have been for Panic at the Park, right? At
Panic at Park, yeah.
I believe it was somewhere in Del Mar. I just remember an exorbitant amount of lemon bars being passed around. And yeah, you had put together, I can't remember the actual location, but a big meetup. And it was like everybody from the San Diego film community was there to rally around an idea that you had. And then it came to fruition. I think that's the first time we met.
I think that's correct. And it actually was Milton's Deli in Del Mar.
That's right.
Which is a famous longtime deli. And we proceeded to have more meetings there and lemon bars because that's what they're famous for. So that is how we met. And that was in 2020. So that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
That was a wild ride and a wild adventure. And I knew you through the acting world of San Diego.
Yeah. And that just culminated into an award for you, I believe, right?
A number of good things happened with that parody that we made together. And it was a blast to do that. I should also mention straight up that Luke and I are from the same great state of Illinois.
That's right.
So he heralds from Rock Island, and I actually was born in DeKalb. There we go, in DeKalb, and went to high school in Glen Ellen, the western suburbs of Chicago. So we have that bond, do we not?
Yes, and I know DeKalb because I spent 2 maybe 3 years. 2 years at Northern Illinois. So I do know DeKalb well. Yeah.
Yes. A lot of cornfields there, aren't there?
A lot of cornfields from DeKalb to my hometown. That's for sure. That's about all there is on the way.
and you went to the University of Illinois State University. Is that in Springfield or Champaign?
That's in Normal, Illinois. So I transferred down there to go into their kinesiology department.
All right. Well, let's talk about your interest we'll cover acting a little bit later, but sure. Let's talk about the primary interest in, you studied exercise science, a study of movement, kinesiology. Take us back to where did that start and how did that passion grow for you?
Sure. So I actually transferred from the school in DeKalb to Illinois State to go into international business. I had a desire. I've always wanted to travel and see the world. That's kind of been one of my bigger goals, is to experience life. And I transferred schools for a business degree to go into international business. And I remember sitting in a accounting class thinking, man, I hate this stuff. And I thought about, well, what is it that I actually like doing? And, in my free time, things I was reading about were nutrition, exercise. And so I ended up in my junior year changing majors, which extended my college career a bit and got into the kinesiology department. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with that, but I knew I was marrying the ability to make an impact with a passion and an interest that I had versus where I found myself in the business school, just hating everything we were doing.
Interesting. Changing, I don't know about Katie because she's been through graduate school, but changing majors in college is so common. I always heard changing your major 3 times was pretty normal. And actually my degree was in elementary education. So that tells you a lot about
yeah.
the longevity of that. But so I'm curious about how you got to San Diego, but tell me a little bit about like getting that degree and where you go from there and how that has impacted, your journey.
Yeah. So from there, I went to Colorado, did about 4 months of sport performance work at a sports performance center, working with high school athletes who are looking to become collegiate athletes. From there, ended up just picking up on a whim and moving out to San Diego. And I got out here, I actually worked in a bike shop. So I grew up in a pedal bike shop. My dad owns a bike shop in Illinois. I was able to get a job out here making, nothing for California for a year before I got into some personal training, using my degree in kind of I want to say like the lowest sense of what I could do with it, to eventually doing some of my own business stuff. And then I actually had a pretty traumatic injury and I ended up in a rehab studio, which led to me actually working there for probably 3 or 4 years. And I got to work with some really high level people to this day I consider mentors. So got to do a lot of corrective exercise, high performance work with professional Olympic level athletes, obviously tons of rehab with, injured folks. So I did that for a few years before kind of stepping back into like really what has been the passion, which is helping people navigate this kind of chaotic world of exercise and nutrition when it really shouldn't be, which is what my kind of goal was when I was trying to personal train. But I found there was limitations with the personal training model. There was a lot of people that would just come to me kind of to check the box, saw my trainer, check the box and move on, where I have a deeper interest in kind of solving at a more root level. And if you really want to have substantial results, like you do have to tackle it from more of a holistic side, which is what I get to do now in my coaching practice, where we do handle the nutrition, we're going to handle the exercise, we have to handle the lifestyle. And it's really helping people kind of grow into the next version of themselves rather than completely outsourcing it.
Well, there's a lot of psychology involved. I'm sure that,
Absolutely.
Majority of the decisions we make involve, our belief systems and things like that. Let's just say someone comes to you, because I know you do online and in person. Someone comes to you and it looks as if you're male dominated at this point, right? You do not work with females yet? Or?
I have a couple female clients. I don't market towards women outside of, honestly, and we can talk about this because obviously that you'll have female listeners. It's really all the same stuff. But when we look in the online space from a marketing standpoint, obviously we have to niche down and be specific and targeted. And then there's also some physiological challenges that I think it is a little bit more difficult for women. That said, I'm working with a couple of rock star women right now who are crushing it, and it's really exciting. And I'm happy to talk about what some of those differences I think are and why I think it can be a little bit different, a little bit more difficult, particularly when we're talking weight loss for women.
Okay. Tell me, give me a sort of the demographic of your clients and sort of age and career, sort of where they're at in their careers and just the psychology of who they are. Sure.
So I do tend to work with mostly, again, young kind of, well, I'm saying young because I'm in this category. It's not that young, I guess, 30 to 45-year-old entrepreneurial men. So these are guys who are really pretty type A, head down, working on their careers. And in doing so, they've kind of sacrificed a bit of their health, their physique, their energy. But they're kind of having their, coming to God moment where they're realizing like, hey, building this business and working on their career at the cost of their health really isn't success. And so we're trying to turn back the clock, get them to integrate habits, which is hard, obviously, again, when their biggest struggle is going to be time limitations.
So let's just say the president of, I don't know, it doesn't matter, ABC Corporation dials you up and says, I word of mouth tells me that you're the person to go to, and these are the pieces that are lacking in my life. How would you approach them, especially online rather than in person, which is probably one step more complex?
The in-person model, to me, the value of it is if there's somebody who has real musculoskeletal corrective exercise needs, obviously there's, I think, the the specificity for that type of movement does come into play. But again, the online model, what I'm finding is I'm able to provide the support systems, accountability, and then enough direction, but it's actually requiring someone else to step in a little bit more. Again, I've like removed that, like check the box, like, cause you actually have to do the physical work, particularly when it comes to the workout side. So in the case of, that gentleman, if you were to reach out, obviously we're going to assess the goal. So again, say it's like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's like giving an honest assessment of like what that time frame really looks like, because most people have unfortunately an expedited idea of what it's going to be based on shoddy marketing and scammy supplements. So it's giving them like a real honest look at what it's going to take. And then if they're ready to do the work, we just start installing the pieces. And generally, I do like to start with the fitness side first. I think there's a lot of momentum about getting our body moving. Then we're going to move into the nutritional pieces, and it's really just layering these things on. I can kind of sum it up to like 3 pieces. Like we do build, fuel, and move. So build, we bring in a very specific personalized resistance training program. And this is built around 100% their time constraints is going to be the big one. Like, what do you have the capacity to do? I cannot tell you, Sue, how many people that I start with, and on an intake form, I ask them, how many days can you realistically dedicate towards exercise? And I cannot tell you how many people will say 7 days. And it's like, well, how has that worked for you in the past? There's a reason you are here where you're at. So we're generally going to scale that back down because we always want to save leverage, and we can add things in. So in the build phase, it's bringing in just quality resistance training programs. On the fuel phase, it's basically fueling to perform. So we're getting the right composition of meals, and obviously total calories have to be accounted for if we have a body composition goal. And then the move phase is kind of one of the more challenging pieces, but we really want to leverage what's called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, like all the little movements that we do throughout the day, how can we, again, leverage and optimize that strategically. So it's not like, hey, go sign up for a marathon. It's, hey, okay, so you sit at a desk all day. Can we build in some 10-minute breaks where you actually take like a walking meeting? And it's just starting to layer those pieces in as needed based on the goal and the results. So there's a lot of biofeedback that comes back that is going to skew and change what we end up doing.
That's absolutely fascinating because it's so precise, and there's really a lot of knowledge to know, about the human body and how our mind and, our emotions probably, react to that.
Psychology is a big part of it, for sure.
I bet it is a big part of it. I mean, you think about 4 decades or however many people have been sort of, being who they are in this world, and then sort of to groom that and change that into, to meet their goals is probably good in the short term, but the long term is probably a bigger challenge.
This is where a lot of, again, like the young entrepreneur type A guy can really like buckle down. And I kind of sum it up like this. A lot of people who are struggling with, again, I'm going to use weight. They tend to treat their fitness and nutrition directives like a marketing launch, and which is like, and yeah, you get that as a business owner.
I do get that. And
they need to, unfortunately, they have to shift that from marketing launch to more of thinking of it as a business plan. And this has to be something that is going to serve you long term. So yeah, you can have short periods of intensity where you do like buckle down and get the work done, which you should do, particularly if we're talking specifically a weight loss phase. It would be a phase, and it can be a heightened level of intensity to drive the result. But if the actions that you're taking aren't built on something that can be foundational long-term, it's all for nothing. And this is where you're going to see somebody lose 10 pounds, put on 15. Then they try it again, and they're in this yo-yo over and over where they never really laid down a foundation, a way of being. They didn't kind of do any of the identity work, and they will be forever trapped in that cycle if they do that.
What have been the challenges for you personally, Luke, in your decades of finding, your best self, I guess?
That's a great question.
It is a good question.
What about the challenge? Yeah,
I mean, over the decades, I mean, you've moved from Illinois to paradise, as I like to say, and you're building the foundation for who you are, what you leave behind, what your legacy is, and what have you found in your few decades that has been something that you have to work harder at?
Yeah. So obviously I think we all have like skills and abilities that come easily to us. Probably the biggest challenge that I have is I'm what you would call a solopreneur. So I work for myself. And I am not personally, it's funny that with my clients and like I help set up systems and processes, I'm not a systems and process driven person. I know we're going to talk art here in a bit, and I've never really considered myself an art person growing up, but I realize I have what I would call a little bit more of an artistic brain, and that there's a lot more fluidity in my life. And so structure and time management and all of the kind of wrangling myself, that's probably the biggest challenge I face, that is not innate to me, where I see other people who it's like, oh, they're very, again, just to throw out like type A as a demographic, really structured, systematic people. I'm not naturally that way. I'm definitely fly by the seat of my pants, which is obviously going to work against me when we're talking things like business.
That's a good point. I smiled at that because I make most of my decisions randomly and quickly, and that works very well for a creative. But then I
Right.
also run a family business, and I got to be accurate with numbers and things like that. So it's a great to establish this what I call an intersection between left brain, right brain.
Hmm.
If you're sort of dominant one or the other, that's just what it is. But the intersection of those two is where, at least my personality, where I excel at. Because when you make a film, it's running a small business, so you've got a
Yeah,
jillion decisions, just like you and your business. You're wearing a lot of hats during that time.
sure.
And I did read a couple of your interviews online, and I read about the bookkeeping and all that has to be done for, running I'm assuming, do you have an LLC or
I'm
what's the
just a
structure?
DBA.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts for, let's just say, the next 5 years? Are there any changes, or are places you want to go within your business, or just expanding your personality that you'd like to see? What are your goals, your personal goals for that?
It's a great question. I have friends who have similar styled businesses that are bigger than mine, who have, I have a friend recently who I was traveling with who is in the health space as well. And he has, 25 employees. And it's like, I don't aspire to probably get to a level at that. In the sense of, I do like being in the trenches working with clients. And at that point, when you obviously are managing 25 people, he has lots of other coaches. There's a lot of things going. Now, that said, his impact is probably going to be bigger than mine. So like, there's always going to be that tug. But a continued expansion, obviously, of what I'm doing. I do want to impact more lives. But I think there will be, and this is probably the selfishness side of it, and also having a business that serves some of my personal preferences and goals would be to keep it. Again, I don't see myself wanting to have a team of 25 people. Obviously, like bringing people in and having support makes sense, but growing something to that level, that's probably not in the realm of what I'm looking to do.
Understood. I recently interviewed the owners of Cali Cream there, and the ice cream place there in San Diego. And I was so enamored by my conversation with them, because they're entrepreneurs as well, did something they're passionate about, much like what you're doing. And in the midst of that conversation, they told me they have 75 employees.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, just knowing what it takes to do the payroll, the insurance, the
Hmm.
work comp, all of those pieces is more than a full-time job in itself. So expanding to that level is a double-edged sword, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's ways, like, so right now, most of my coaching is one-on-one. I'm looking at bringing out some group programs, because obviously I am dealing with very similar problems with most men. So there's ways that I can grow it and still kind of keep it within the constraints of, I don't want to say the lifestyle that I want to have. But there are ways, but yeah. I mean, you said it, like managing 75 people and obviously multiple physical locations. I would imagine their lives and their vision have shifted dramatically from where they started, when it was like, hey, we have this amazing ice cream we want to share with people. And what a
yeah.
difference they're in now, which
And
is probably a good thing.
there's two of them. So, I mean, at least they, probably have different sort of styles and personalities. But I just was so impressed with how their business started in 2015. And
Hmm.
here, it's only 7 years later. But for you personally, on your day to day, 7 days a week, what is your What's your style? Tell me a little bit about your working out, and just give me sort of the simplicity of what your day-to-day looks like.
So unlike a lot of I feel like health and wellness people that you talk to, where they're like, oh, you have to do a 3-hour morning routine and gratitude journaling and cold
Mhm.
plunging and um and fast for the first 8 hours. So I do get up. I like to run through the numbers on clients as far as like quick check-ins, see if there's just, and I don't want to say fires that I need to put out, but clients have a lot of access to me. And it's exciting to me to stay up to date on. I find I'm probably more invested than I probably should be. I like to stay up to date on what those feedback numbers are looking like. So I do check out client intake forms, just client data. I usually start my day there. As far as like exercise routine, everybody assumes I have something crazy. I'm going to work out, anywhere from 3 to 5 times per week. It's actually not anywhere as structured as most people would think. There's not this dedicated time to where it's all, again, not being the type A person. And then obviously there's going to be outreach and the marketing side of business that I do as well
Good
throughout the day.
point. Yes. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit into acting,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
and which is how you and I met. And you had a role in our film Panic at Park, and how did that like develop? And it's contrasting kind of to your other business. Talk to me a little bit about the origins of that. I'm assuming it started out in San Diego, but maybe before that.
No, it did start in San Diego. And, um, for me, I've always been, and I actually share this perspective to people from a fitness side as well, where I stepped into it from a place of, curiosity, knowing that I was nervous to do it. And that was a good indicator of like, ooh, I'm going to go try this. I'm definitely someone who, like, if there's something that I'm uncomfortable about doing, that's kind of an indicator that I should lean in. And so it had been something that I had wanted to toy with. And again, growing up, I played sports. I wasn't in any theater growing up, but it was something in my mind that obviously, like anyone watching a movie, you think, man, that'd be so fun. I wonder if I can do that. And so I signed up for a local acting class. And I remember going in and getting back from that acting class and taking off my shirt and being like, I smell so bad because I had nervous sweat. Like I couldn't believe. I was like, this is worse than jujitsu, and being absolutely terrified. And I was like, all right, guess I got to go back. And it really started kind of from that place of almost like personal development, which is what's fantastic. I mean, I'm in a class with, having to sing a cappella when there's people who are like what I would call real performers who can sing, and I'm up there just, murdering a song. So it really did start from a place of kind of personal development, curiosity, and realizing it was out of my comfort zone. And since then, it's grown into something that I really do enjoy. I find it really challenging, which is it's something that I'm finding fun to try to figure out. And I don't know if that's something that you ever do, but I really am enjoying that part of the process.
How many years now have you been, and do you have an agent, and
Um,
how do you explore that passion of yours?
it's a great question. How many years? It's probably been 5 now, I think, maybe a little longer. So I am repped locally for with San Diego Model Management, and then I have a commercial rep in LA, which going up to LA for commercial auditions at this point, it's like not really a good use of time. But I do have that, and through the local agent here, there's been like lots of great experiences that have unfolded, and this is kind of the stumbling forward that I think we all can experience when we try new things. So like just last week, I was one of the co-hosts for the La Jolla International Fashion Film Festival, to where I got to present films and interview a lot of filmmakers live on a live stream, which is chaotic and fun and challenging in itself. So that, was a great opportunity. And again, kind of a comfort zone thing to have to get up in front of, 400 people and introduce films and filmmakers. And so it's led to some fun things. Obviously, I think like most actors, like I want to do, film and TV and those types of roles. And so, yeah, it's stumbling forward. The one thing I will say, and hats off to you for what you're doing. It's an interesting industry in that I don't feel like, if you were, say, an accountant and you wanted to expedite your career, I feel like there's probably some very tangible things that you could go do. Maybe I could be wrong. But I feel like in this industry, there's not really a clear road of how to get from A to B outside of if you do start to self-produce, which obviously you do. But a lot of, your career and your projects and goals are going to be in the hands of other decision makers. So it's something that I understand the frustration and why people quit, because there doesn't seem to be like just this direct path that you can take.
Well, that's fascinating. Obviously, I'm behind the camera intentionally, although I have been in a number of films, not willingly. But let's deviate a little bit here. It's from what you said, I found fascinating and true. However, there's the whole concept, Luke, of attracting who we are and having an intention, setting an intention. And then how my life has worked for me is I'll set an intention, tell somebody, and then I trust that the universe is going to line things up for me. And guess what? It does again and again and again and again. So there doesn't need to be a formula so much,
Right.
because, you see just regular people getting extraordinary roles in films. And you're like, how in the hell,
Yeah.
how did that happen? And what can I do to make that happen? But I
Yep.
think it starts internally with our energy and the whole law of attraction thing. And it's really being sort of in the knowing of this is for me. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be walking that path it sounds like you've got some projects lined up, and I can just see that you're equally passionate about it as you are with your business that you're running. If you got a big role, just say LA in some Marvel movie or something, that would change the path pretty quickly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, there'd be a lot of decisions that would have to be made, right? Yeah. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because you are, I can just tell by watching you that you love this sort of personal expansion of who you are, because playing different characters that's in itself is a tremendous challenge, I would think.
Oh yeah. And this is the part when I say it is challenging and frustrating. Is I've jokingly said, I go, man, there's times where I've been in the little, projects that I've done. I go, I feel like I'm the most boring version of myself. And what I mean with that is like, man, I know I have more to give, more of myself that I can open up and share and explore and play full out with. And whether that's, nerves or making sure you have your lines, it is a interesting art to try to figure out that I do enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of it, of kind of navigating that personal experience of it. And the other piece that I really enjoy as well, which probably speaks to you as somebody who again works with people, but by myself in my business, I do enjoy seeing a group of people creatively come together to make something. I think that's a neat experience. And as you know, like, it's amazing how in some sense chaotic it is, and seeing something come together. Even on, again, I've not done anything in any stretch that's big or known, but just on some of these, like I've been on a couple commercials where I was a stand-in for a well-known athlete, and just like watching this come together with all of these people, where there's like 60 people lighting a room. It's like, this is absurd, right? It's a 6-minute little or a 6-second little spot, but it took 12 hours to light a room. It's like, what? And just watching all of those people collectively bring it together is pretty neat.
Yeah, the interesting part on the backside is collaborating. I mean, we collaborate our whole lives long, with family members and relationships and school and all. That's life is collaboration. So when you're specific about an end goal, like making a film, everybody's fingerprint counts.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's energy counts. Everybody's moods and attitudes counts. And it ends up on the screen, in
Sure.
some fashion. So being sort of at the helm, like executive producer or director, producer, you're responsible for all those pieces. And one of the things that is a big draw for me is the idea that, and everything is this way, I suppose, is like a jigsaw puzzle. So you're
Yeah.
adding a piece, taking a piece out, kind of thing. and the collaborative relationships that you build, the networks that you build are a gateway to what's next, in life.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you have sort of contrasting passions.
Yeah.
Acting is not entirely different than your business, but are there any other hobbies or things that I saw you traveled recently? Are there any other passions that you have that you'd like to share with us?
One of my biggest passions, and this kind of falls into the fitness world, but I don't put it in the camp of like, I wouldn't suggest this to somebody as like a route to a health and fitness practice. And I do say that I help people with a health and fitness practice, but I'm very passionate about jujitsu. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the thing one of the things I probably enjoy the most. Unfortunately, obviously it's not the best thing to always be doing. I mean, this is a game of trying to strangle and break each other's joints tactically and safely. But it is its own art in itself, in the sense of it's extremely challenging physically, but there's the mental component of technical. And there's nothing like, having some guy who's 50 pounds lighter than you just absolutely destroy you. So jujitsu is a big passion. Then, yeah, you kind of hit it, traveling and exploring, man. There's so much of this world to see. I'm trying to soak up as much of it as I can.
Well, one of the things that I have seen from afar for you is, and I think this is radically important in people building their lives, is you have a really solid foundation underneath you. And what I mean by that is your family, your upbringing. And again, I don't know the details of your life, but it appears that you have a solid support system. And all of those things are really a privilege,
Yeah.
obviously, to have had solid people that are, rooting for you, love you unconditionally, and all of that. I mean, that cannot be emphasized enough, how much there is or isn't out there for any individual. So you've got the formula, Luke, for accomplishing anything you want to in this life because of where you've been, of the generations of your family. And I see your parents come and visit you periodically, and you go back to Illinois periodically.
Yep.
And that's vastly important, isn't it?
Yeah. And living in San Diego, the hardest thing for me is being away from my parents and my sister. Something I ruminate on consistently. So they've moved down to Missouri, and I don't have the desire to live in the Midwest, which, as you mentioned earlier, like, we live in paradise. But yeah, I'm really blessed to have had truly supportive parents throughout my entire life to this day, a wife that is also incredibly supportive beyond belief. And yeah, I am very, very fortunate for that. And they've impacted me tremendously throughout this ride, which actually will lead me to finally telling you something here. So every
wait. I want to guess what it is.
Okay.
Wait. I'm going to guess what it is.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you ready?
Yeah, lay it on me.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah, I want to hear it. Let's
Right.
go.
You're going to be a father.
No. I'm smarter. See, I'm smarter than I look. No kids in my future, actually, which
that's a journey. All right. Give me some hints.
Which shocks people. Well, this is gonna be a much bigger letdown then. So, but obviously this is audio listeners. Every time I've posted a picture or a video, like I work out on my deck. I live in San Diego. It's hot. I'm working out shirtless, and I will put a video of me doing a workout or whatever, and I'm shirtless. And I have 2 tattoos, and Sue always, on any post, just comments. I don't even think I need to be shirtless at this point. I think you just comment #stars. And so I figured I'd tell you the story behind my tattoos. So my tattoos, the 2 on my shoulders and chest, are nautical stars, which basically kind of symbolize a direction away in life. And each one has my parents' name embedded in it. So when we talk about, being close to your family, like I got mom and dad's name like tatted on my body. So they are very deeply important to me. 2 of my best friends. And I got to go home and visit them soon now. You got me getting me a little homesick here.
I can tell that. And I love watching your posts when they come to travel to visit you, or you go back home, especially. And so my producer, Katie, I try to be professional, I'm not sure I always look at her face. I'm not sure I always succeed. So I'll text her and I'll send a message and say, try not to watch Luke's latest post on Facebook. And she'll write me back and say, too late. I've already watched it 3 times. So I'm embarrassing her. Oh, well, I mean, you are at a pinnacle. I think you're at a pinnacle of your life and what you wanted to do. And I think let's segue just a little bit into kindness now, because this podcast is sort of an offshoot of my Power of One, Random Acts
Which I
of
love, by the
Kindness.
way.
Yes, me as well. And so let's talk. We ask all of our guests to define kindness because it's such a random sort of conversation. But how would you, if you were sitting on a bench with an older gentleman and you started to have a conversation about kindness, how would you frame for him your version of that?
You know, I listened to your podcast obviously before coming on, and I thought about this question quite a bit, and I struggled to answer it, and outside of answering it with other words that I would need to then define. So, it's funny. I think we all can recognize kindness when we see it, and I think the world needs a heck of a lot more of it. And so I actually wrote something down. This is what just spoke to me, but it was supporting others in need from a place of true service. And I think oftentimes there's, particularly now, like you see it on social media, where it's like random acts of kindness. And it's like, no, that's a random act of strategic engagement. And so I think kindness is really when you're there supporting somebody who needs help. And it's coming from a truly genuine place of just looking to support them. I mean, that could be through being there to have a conversation. Obviously that could be through, donations. I think it could come in a number of ways. But I think it's supporting someone in need from a place of service.
And I look at it, the word authentic came up as you were talking about an authentic, extension of self. And I really look at it as a way of being in the world. So it's not like a one-off. It's just a way you navigate life 24/7, as needed.
And, it's funny that this was literally a day before we were scheduled this interview. I have a noisy brain, very noisy brain. Music plays constantly in my head, and trains of thought just are chaotic at times. And I was actually walking back home, and I was just thinking of values for some reason, and the value, and I kid you not, the one thing where I thought the value that man is not appreciated enough was being kind. And I don't even know why. I was doing laundry, and these are the things I'm like ruminating on while I was walking back home, putting my laundry in from the garage, coming into the house. And this is what I was thinking about. And man, I do think like there's something that if it could be added into the world, if you could sprinkle it, like the ability to be kind, like, man, what a transformative thing that would be.
Good point. Yeah, and we really do spend a lot of conversation with my network, shall I say, about offering that opportunity to do random acts of kindness. And I especially love, Luke, anonymous random acts of kindness that are
Sure.
just done without, anybody seeing or knowing necessarily. But just the idea that you put positivity into humanity, which is for all of time, it has a ripple effect way beyond your life. And so when you think about it that way, it's easy to look for opportunities that, and on a day-to-day basis, I really do. I think, okay, who can I lighten something for, or lift somebody in some fashion? It's just a way, it's just a way of being that feels good, feels right. And I think it's contagious. And I see it everywhere because that's who I am. I notice it everywhere. If you were to, and you saw the marketing that I did for you for the podcast, and I use the word flourish because that's kind of one of the words you use in describing your business. Are there any words that resonate with you just out of the blue that we could put into the brand on your behalf? Because that's one of the things we love to do as a leave behind.
And I had a different word before, but one that just popped in my head is explore. And, this was obviously, you mentioned I'd just gone on a trip and getting to experience some really beautiful nature in Glacier National Park. But, whether it's, again, when I think of what I do, it's like exploring is helping people explore their health and like getting in tune with that so you can actually explore the world and go do life. Like that is the value of actually improving your health and your fitness and your wellness. It's you're going to have a more robust experience of life. And for me, life is exploring opportunities, again, whether that's stepping into that acting class and being terrified, going to a jiu-jitsu class, hitting a trail. There's a lot to explore in this life, and it is always much better and easier if you are healthy and fit to do it.
That's a good point. Yeah. And there certainly are a lot of folks walking around with different stories than you and I have, different upbringings and different sort of, biophysical way they are. So I consider myself, one of the words that I utilize a lot is the word lucky.
Sure.
Because I consider myself grossly lucky for the life that I chose, the parents, the foundations that I built, all of that. So it's a way of thinking about who you are in the world and the words that you use in your mind as you're talking about, the words that come out of your mouth, all of that just kind of predicts the journey. And so I'm very, very careful about what words I choose. And, right now in the brand, when we started My Power of One in 2014, we started with 4 words. And now I think we're up to about 180 or something like that. And I've seen people wearing the shirts all over the world. And that,
That's
that
cool.
feels that sleeps pretty good at night.
Yeah.
Just to think, and that was born on a relationship from a gal who had been homeless on the streets of Kansas City, blah, 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 the backstory of it. But it's just ever evolving. And, as a compliment to her, she spurred that in me. And now you and I are talking about it, and we are creating a word that will forever, guess what? Forever be in the brand. And that is, that feels good, doesn't it? It supersedes cool. Everything else, all our goals and all of our wannabes in the world. And I don't know, it just is, it's exactly who I want to be in all the days of my life. It's kind of a give back in a way. It's a full circle kind of a thing. All right, well, let's talk about random acts of kindness then. I mean, think about the entirety of your life, Luke, and think about what has impacted you. Somebody's done something out of the blue, or it reminds you of how important kindness is. You and I are going to co-create a random act of kindness to invite our audience into having the opportunity to do.
Very cool.
I'm going to turn that over to you.
So there's 2 people that come to mind. Both my dad and then a friend / mentor out here, Sean Robeck, who I worked with when I said I got hurt and ended up working at this rehab studio. What I don't share for his often his benefit is he did a significant amount of free work to rehab me. This was before I was working with him. He took me under his wing, and as some poor kid in San Diego at the time, was above and beyond gracious in his treatment of me, which then led to me actually working there and being part of his business for a few years. But I don't want to go into too many details more than maybe he wants me to share, but he was extremely gracious in the support that he lended me. And when you are a practitioner and a provider and you're doing labor and physical, like time dollars, like that means a lot. That's not, throwing me to somebody else. Like it was hands-on work that he did with me. And so forever grateful to him, and somebody else who I will introduce to you for this podcast. And then my other one would be my dad. My dad, through his bike shop, I grew up watching somebody who like truly cared for people. Like I might cry telling you this as I get emotional thinking about it, but in San Diego, the homeless population is obviously very significant. And it was something that was shocking to me when I moved here, because we just don't have that. And obviously I'm from a smaller community. We just don't have that level of homelessness, nor do we have, I hate to say if we did, there would not be the level of uncaring, if that would be a word. But, you know, we've all done this here in San Diego, where you've just walked past a homeless man and like, you don't say anything, or like I've stepped over somebody before because they're laying across the sidewalk, and it's like a heartbreaking thing. And the first time I was here and saw this, I was just like, this is crazy. You know, I'm bending over like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? What's going on? Because you wouldn't see that in my hometown. And I watched my dad throughout his career really aid and support a lot of down on their luck people in ways that were just, you know, somebody would bring their bike in, we'd fix it up for free, to here's some money, to, you know, having gone and helping get somebody put in social services, to a gentleman, Leroy, who I can reflect back on. Like, Leroy came over for Christmas, and Leroy was a guy who my dad met when he was young and then got hit by a car and was in a home, and his sister was stealing all his welfare checks, and he was living in absolute filth and squalor. And my dad was able to help get him in a facility. And then, you know, my dad would go see Leroy, and Leroy came over for Christmas. And seeing, told you I'm gonna cry.
Go ahead and cry. It's okay.
Seeing somebody who I care about being that passionate about supporting people was really inspiring.
So again, you know, your foundation of, you know, small town USA, mom and dad, present for your upbringing and all of that, and all the lessons, kind of the lessons that they just modeled. Let's put it that way. You've got everything you need for the expression of Luke in the world all the days of your life. And not everybody gets that. You know, a lot of people have drug addicted parents and or no parents. You know, they're out in the world on their own. And my UPS guy's driving up. He's going to make a delivery here. You know, you and I know each other fairly well, but not certainly much more now that we've spent this time together. And I just feel so aligned with you, with the spirit of who you are. I've always told our daughters, and we've got 2 girls, I've always told them that they picked us for parents. You know, I have this theory that you pick your parents for the lessons you need to learn in this lifetime. So you picked mom and dad because of whatever lessons, you know, you're meant to learn, which apparently you're doing a pretty good job at, just, you know, growing into a compassionate human being, following passions and being a role model for others. I just want to tell you that I really feel aligned with the spirit of who you are. And I love that we met as randomly as it was on Panicut Park. You know, together, as far as the random act of kindness, let's get more specific on that, on what somebody could do that we could define, kind of like with your training and, you know, and what you do in your business. Let's get specific about something, an activity someone could do, because people need that. They like to be instructed.
I think so. I'm gonna say 2 things, and I will obviously get on board of doing this as well. Again, in San Diego, like the homeless population, it's pretty wild, and obviously, what I'm going to suggest, obviously, I would say make sure you are safe and feel comfortable doing this, but there's likely probably someone that you consistently see in your neighborhood. And there's probably an opportunity to, again, just support that person through a potential give. I mean, that could be money, that could be clothing. Obviously make sure this is something that's safe to do. I mean, I've given a few people rides that I've told people about, and they're like, you did what? And, but you know, it could be giving somebody a sandwich. And I think the big thing is actually spending a few moments speaking with that person. I was speaking with a gentleman yesterday who I'm actually going to introduce you to, and I want to mention his organization. It's compassionatecommunication.org. Sorry, my cat's trying to make an appearance here.
Hi, kitty.
So compassionatecommunication.org. It's a gentleman who runs a podcast who's become a friend of mine as well. And this is for anybody who comes on his show. He requests a donation of whatever, I think it's a minimum of $100, but he's given away, I think he gives about $25,000 away a year, and he just does it in gift cards. And he's starting to do some interviews with, actually he'd be a great person to introduce you to, because he's doing interviews and he's looking at putting together a documentary on the homeless population. And so we spoke as well. And he said, yeah, a lot of these people are just grateful to have somebody to speak to. And I think about this often, again, in my neighborhood, where like, we can't help every single person, and you can't help every single time. But man, there's times where you walk by somebody and, like they might be panhandling, or they're just saying hi, and you speak back to them. But you think about all of the other times where like they tried to speak to somebody and they're ignored. And there might be a day where like, I don't think any of us can feel what that feels like to be that invisible. So I think if you have the opportunity to give something tangible that could help that person, again, obviously money, clothing, food, but rather than just dropping it at their feet and walking away, perhaps asking, how are you? And you don't know what that conversation is going to be. Believe me, I was telling this gentleman yesterday, around my house, there's a building, and there was two guys sleeping. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because of what I'm going to say, on both sides of this corner. So neither of them are aware of the other person. This is a few months ago when it was like raining. So I'm walking home from the grocery store. I see these two guys and I'm like, all right, I got some blankets and stuff we got to donate anyway. So I go get all this stuff, bring it down to him. And I go, hey man, like, could you use a blanket? And, the guy kind of turns over and he starts swearing at me, and he's mentally ill. So like, he's like, I don't want your effing money. And I'm like, well, I don't have any money to give you, man. I got a blanket. Like, would you like this blanket? And I couldn't really communicate with him. So I ended up just covering him up and, big brother in him and putting a blanket on him, which he then obviously used. And then I went around the corner and asked the same thing to the other gentleman. The other gentleman's obviously, he was extremely grateful. Oh, thank you so much. And of course I would help the other guy 10 times over as well. Because again, he's just mentally doesn't have the faculties. So you don't know the experience that you're going to have in doing that, right? You could get the gentleman who's going to tell you to F off. And, but I still think that's a great opportunity. If you feel safe, obviously, be smart with this, because there is a significant portion of mental illness at play with a lot of these people. But man, I think if you can just give in that individual person and maybe even, again, spend a few minutes, I think that can go a long way for somebody.
So in there lies our connection. And that's so random, but you probably are not aware that my first film that I made 20 years ago was about our nation's homeless. So
cool.
It took me 3 years, and I traveled through 15 cities from Harlem to Skid Row across the country to meet our nation's homeless, because I'd never met a homeless person. And someone told me straight up at the beginning of it, they said, Sue, they won't talk to you. And which was just a comment, but I found the exact opposite to be true. When I sat and spent time with homeless women, men, children, families, they couldn't stop talking. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to share their story. They wanted to share their life. And it was transformational for me, because here I am, a girl in the Midwest with great Leave It to Beaver family and, all of that, no addictions or anything. And I'm meeting the polar opposite of myself.
Oh, yeah.
3 years worth. And I want you to know that film premiered, my first film, I was 50 years old. It premiered to a standing room only audience right after Katrina hit New Orleans. And the word homelessness was an international conversation. So if I was the smartest person in the entire universe, I wouldn't have been able to coordinate that. And it just was meant to line up in that way for me, that 10-minute film is all it was. What ended up raising $200,000 for shelters.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
That was just me listening to my instinct, the tap on the shoulder, and being bold enough to step into it and complete it all the way to the end. So that's the magic of life.
Wow. That's really inspiring, because, I think there's a lot of us, myself included, who are idea people, but you don't consider like, not to say what you did was simple, obviously 3 years, but like, hey, a 10-minute film is not a 2-hour, I need, $500,000 to create this thing.
Yeah.
Yet to create that impact. That's incredible.
That's
Wow.
really trusting that the universe knows what it's doing. And again, I use the term universe a lot, but it trusts that my instinct lines up with the destiny of who I am. And that's true for all of us if we're listening. And if we're bold enough to go ahead and take the action steps that it takes to go into the unknown,
Hmm.
and the ripple effect of that. And again, the gal that I met who had been on the streets of Kansas City as a drug addict, our friendship spurred the beginnings of My Power of One. So the brand My Power of One exists because of a gal that used to be a drug addict on the streets of Kansas City, who has since, by the way, been my graphic designer on all of my projects for the last 15 or 17 years, because she was grossly talented, but had a different upbringing than I did. So she had made
Sure.
different choices than I did. So there's magic in every relationship and every human being out there. Part of it is noticing. But yes, please connect me with that individual you were talking about. And in
Yep.
the meantime, I'm going to send you the link to that film, because I want you to
Cool.
watch it. 10 minutes, it just was me explaining what that 3 years was like. And it just really was a pinnacle moment in my life. And those are everywhere all the time. Let's see, what am I missing? Oh, I'd like to, we've got less than 5 minutes. I'd like to have people know where they can find you. What are your connections on social media, etc.?
Yeah. So website is livegreatlifestyle.com. Instagram is livegreatlifestyle.com. Facebook as well. That's the name of the podcast. Obviously, you can connect with me personally at Luke DePron on Facebook, or if you need to email, lukedepron@gmail.com. But if you go to livegreatlifestyle.com, that'll kind of get you everywhere, I think.
And I definitely want to give kudos to your mom and dad. I don't know why I keep saying that, but it makes me feel emotional when I say that.
Yeah,
But
my two favorite people in the world. So I'm gonna call them.
Yeah.
Now I gotta call home after I get off this.
Yeah. And then keep in mind the word lucky, because I see you as a human who has had an extraordinary few decades so far, with many more to go, of course. And the kindness that sits and radiates from you is all that I see.
Well, Sue,
And
that's very kind of you to say. So I really do appreciate that.
yeah,
Thank
whatever your goals are and whatever your dreams are and whatever catches your attention, what I see when I look at you, which is why I use that picture that I did in your marketing in the blue shirt with your hand over your heart. To me, it was an expression of Luke, that you make decisions from your heart, the core of who you are. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to your parents, and that's probably not accurate, but I'm going to do it anyway.
No, I think that's quite fair.
They'll appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's quite fair.
We've been so honored and privileged to have you on the podcast today, and there's many more things we can talk about, but I wanted to thank you for giving us an hour of your day. I think Katie and I both equally appreciate the 2 stars that you have forever for your mom and dad. And I try not to be awful, but I probably not going to be able to resist that hashtag stars every time I see
that's
those.
Great. I welcome it.
I do want to say again, thank you for being with us, and the Wizard of One. The podcast, I think your podcast goes live in September, like 13th, and I think I chose Happiness Happens Day. It was just a national holiday that I wanted to link you up with, but that will be live next month.
Cool.
And then our next interview that we're doing coming down the road here in a couple of weeks is with David Dawson, who co-directed with me Panic at Park, and he's coming to the Midwest. We're going to make a film in November together. So I've got a director, voiceover talent, actor himself coming in for our next interview coming up. And we got Dee Wallace we're going to do next month. Katie, my producer, I challenged her with interviewing Dee Wallace from ET, and so that's very exciting. But it has been a privilege, absolute privilege for me to spend this hour with you. And I just want to say, in culmination of it, I absolutely adore you.
Well, thank you, Sue. That's, again, I appreciate the kind words. Thank God this is a video, or not video. I'm over here blushing. Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and obviously getting to know you as well. And I'm even more impressed now that I know you've raised $200,000 for homeless individuals. So yeah. Very cool.
Well, not me personally. I think the universe took care of that, but I just was a player in the whole role. But thank you for being with us, and I hope to see you soon. And I wish that all your dreams come true.
You as well.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.